Hi everybody, Andi Kravljaca here, and it's time for that most favorite segment where you guys ask me questions on anything from life to death to Twin Peaks and beyond. It's Q&A Part 4. Straight to the questions. Greg asks, since you have such a great melodic singing voice, what are your thoughts and opinions of extreme metal vocals such as death and black metal? Well, Greg, that's a very good question. Thank you very much for the compliment about my voice. My opinion on growling in music is that it is a color, it is a tool, and it does belong in the toolbox. When you give it context, when you give it a background to stand out against, I think it can be a very, very cool and poignant tool for pointing out a deep rage, sadness, an expression of desperation, which few things can match. But my beef, my problem, is with bands which use nothing but growled vocals, because then you haven't put the vocals in any kind of context. I mean, let me put this into perspective. If all you ever play is your guitar distortion on 10, and you never clean it up, and you don't have any, clean or acoustic segments or anything like that, after a while, it is my belief that the brain and the ear of your audience is going to become accustomed to the aggression level in your music, and you're not going to have anywhere to go from that. So I would say that, in the proper context and in the proper quantity, growls are perfectly fine. I've done growls, I've been on albums with growls, and I do support them being used. How much is enough? Well, that's subjective, but to me, I would say subjectively, I would say about 2 to 3 words an album is enough growling to keep me tided over. Sebastian asks, when you write a solo or improvise a solo, how do you go about it? Do you have a look at the underlying chords and pick modes that associate with them? Or do you just sit there and improvise till you find something that sounds great? Concurrently, Adam asks, do you learn solos with tabs, or how do you do it? Well, let me answer the tabs question first. One of the things that depresses me the most when I get a comment on my channel or at askandykravljaca@gmail.com is when you ask me, could you please send me tabs for this song? I've gotten so many requests for tabs for the Tour of Duty theme. I'll link to up here. It's one of my most popular videos. Here's the thing. I don't know how to read any music notation system. I don't know how to read sheet music. I don't know how to read tabs. Never learned. I've always figured everything out by ear. So if I hear something, I can usually play it, but there is no system of notation where you could show me something on a piece of paper or on a computer screen and I would be able to play it. My mastery of musical theory kind of extends to, the circle of fifths and, harmonic theory and songwriting and, understanding chord progressions and understanding music history and stuff like that. But as far as reading sheet music and reading tabs, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't even know, like in the lines on the tabs, which string is which. I don't know if the top string on the tab is like this string or if it's this string. I literally don't know. So please don't ask me for tabs, because I get disappointed every single time, and you guys don't want to depress me, do you? So no, I don't learn from tabs. I just listen, and I'm a vocalist, right? I mean, I've been singing for a lot longer than I've played guitar, so I usually just sing the solo. I'll hear a chord progression, and I'll just go like, and then I'll have to come back to the guitar and go, what the heck did I do? It's like, okay, cool, I'll do that. So most of my solos are vocal in origin, and that goes all the way back to 1997 when I started playing. Those of you who have seen that old video for the unnamed song solo, I'll link to it up here. It was vocally conceived, that as well. So I hum my solos, which is sometimes difficult when all you can hum is whittle, 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 wee. But yeah, that's how I do it. Toon asks a twofold question. Number one, if you play with high frets, 12 or 15, how bad is it to avoid using your pinky? And the second question is, when you shred, or at least when people call shredding, do you hold your pick loose or do you squeeze it? Okay, so first things first, this goes back to the growling question. If you play on high frets, 12th, 15th, and above, using your pinky is another tool in the toolbox. It is another color in your palette of colors. So it's not something you should use all the time, and it's not something I would say that unless you play with your pinky all the time, you're not a proper guitarist. But why not use it? I mean, it's there. Why not teach yourself how to use it? Because then when you find yourself in a situation where you kind of have to use it, you won't be stuck. Because what happens when you get into a situation where you're playing like a 4-string arpeggio and it's like, and then you have to go to, it would be so much better to not have to go, but to just be able to go. So the way I see it is, why not teach yourself how to use the pinky, and then it should be up to you whether you think it's necessary to use it or not in that particular situation. Because if you play a run like, you can play that with a pinky as well. As far as the second question, when I shred, my friend Ian, the instructor from Knock Hill Racing Circuit, will be able to say that better than I can. Ian, what kind of a grip are we looking for?
And you've got to have a sensitive grip. It's a firm, but it's a light grip.
So as Ian would say, it's a firm but light grip, which means you need to kind of grip the pick firmly but lightly, which means don't white knuckle it. If you notice that, you know, you're kind of pressing the thumb into the pick to the point where the tip of your thumbnail is kind of getting, you know, yellow or white, relax that grip a little bit, that's all right. But grip it firmly, grip it to the point where you're not just holding it by a little piece of it. This is why I use these huge triangular picks. That's the reason, is I put them here, clamp my thumb down on top of them, and as you can see, there's a very small piece of pick that's sticking out down here. So most of the pick is actually devoted to that grip, and that's because I try to hold it firmly but lightly. And if I'm holding it lightly, I need as much area as possible to make sure that it doesn't slip out. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could rest it from me, but you can't do it from down here because there's not enough grip. So when I play firmly but lightly. Zorklard asks, I'm practicing arpeggios. Some guys say that it's good to mute the strings when you're doing it. I can't figure out how is that. But if you can explain it properly, it'll be very helpful to me. Okay, Zorklard, let's try. So let's presume we're playing an arpeggio here, and I'll put on a clean tone just to not muddy it up for you. Say we're playing. So a little bit of a James Bond thing. It sounds better to do it this way than to do. See the difference? Now all I'm doing is I'm moving my hand, you know, this part of my palm, my hand, from the black part of the Floyd Rose onto the very root of the string, just to make sure that the string can't sustain infinitely, but it just kind of gets a little bit dampened. Now it's not like super hard palm muting, it's just, which kind of makes this go from to. Now if we come back to the 4-string arpeggios from before, I mean, what if I played as opposed to? See how much cleaner that is? That's why you mute the strings. Now Alma asks, are you a Twin Peaks fan? Now Alma, when I was a kid, there was a new show on television. It was on late at night, and it was something which always scared me a little bit. I couldn't quite put my finger on why. That show kind of titillated me, and it excited me, and it made me realize that something scary was going on. I like Twin Peaks, and I think David Lynch is a cool movie maker. I love his movies. I think he makes some of the most quirky and bizarre movie art that you can, to the point where, you know, he can make a building look to where you see a building and you'll never look at a building the same again because you saw it through his eyes, and his eyes are so loopy and screwy, and it's amazing. I don't watch Twin Peaks, you know, regularly or anything like that, but I will watch it when it comes on. I think it's a cool show. Finally, Barbara asks, if you could be a character in Star Trek, who would you be? Let's answer this through song. Never saw the sun, shining so bright. Never saw things looking so right.
Noticing the days hurrying by. When you're in love, my how they fly. Oh, blue skies, smiling at me.
Irving Berlin.
Nothing but blue skies do I see.
Data. Any day of the week, it's Data. Data was such a huge influence on me when I was a kid. Data was literally the only person on television with whom I could identify as a little kid. The only person on television who behaved like I did. Now, a lot of people have this idea that when you're a little bit brainsy and you like to keep to yourself, it's all about Spock. But Spock, he looked down on humanity. Spock saw himself as superior to humanity, and he had this kind of misanthropic vein to him, which was incredibly funny when you contrasted him with Dr. McCoy. But Data wasn't like that. Data wanted to be a real boy. Data is Pinocchio. Data wanted to be like everybody else. And when I was a kid, I remember being, I was a pretty smart kid, and I kept to myself, and I did my chemistry and my math and my multiplication tables and my physics, and I knew somehow that I wanted to be involved in natural sciences, and I did end up going to university and doing theoretical physics and so on. But more than anything, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to understand humor and sarcasm and the social interactions between people, which to me seemed like a foreign language that everybody else intuitively understood, and I had to empirically learn. So for me, Data was a huge deal on television, and I would wait to see him on TV and wonder what lessons he would learn today about fitting into human society and being kind of more human, while at the same time being such a great role model, because Data is innocent, he is benevolent, he won't hurt you, he has all the wisdom of the world and superhuman strength, but more than anything, he just wants to be you. And there's something incredibly endearing about that. And Data's quite the heartthrob for that reason, as far as I've understood. A lot of women felt attracted to Data for that very reason. He was a very safe but strong character. And that's something I've always aspired to be safe and strong. That's all for this week, and always remember you can reach me on any of the social media links I've listed in the description below, or at askandyKravljaca@gmail.com. Now, to check out a video playlist of my vocal covers, please click here. For some guitar solo covers, please click here. And to do what I really want you to do, which is subscribe to this channel, please click over here. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Andi Kravljaca, and I'll see you later.